A very good afternoon to all of you. We have had amazing sessions since last 2 days and yet to come, few more yet to come till evening. So stay tuned in and enjoy, learn from these speakers, the amazing speakers we have. Well, anyways, I was just thinking about management studies, and I was just thinking all the management students would have studied Peter Drucker, Stephen Robbins, Stephen Covey, but how many of us have studied Kautilya Arthashaastra? I'm sure very few. Arthashaastra is a leadership manual written by Chanakya in 4 BC. It is inspired by the teachings of many prior ancient masters, including Vidurniti. Vidurji, we all know through Mahabharata, thanks to television, DD National showed us Mahabharata very recently. So Arthashastra manual was written for building a nation based on strong economics and governance. And it is not only the only the manual which is available with us. We have plenty of ancient learnings which can be referred to build a good governance. And this is the topic of our masterclass today: prosperity, ancient Indian perspective and its relevance to the social purpose. And to present this, we have an expert who has done deep study in ancient Indian treatises. His purpose is to apply principles from eternal global wisdom, especially Indian global wisdom, Indian wisdom, to modern organizations. He's known for combining the best of Western and Indian management sciences to provide leadership coaching and consulting to the corporates. He's very passionate about wellness, and he practices Kriya Yoga and energy healing. Please welcome the founder of Chanakya Consulting Insight, Mr. Rajesh Kamath.
Namaste.
Hello, namaskar. Very happy to see you.
Same here. So, namaste to all our participants. Shruti, can I start?
Absolutely. All yours, sir.
And namaste also to our Purvacharyas whom Shruti mentioned, right from Chanakya backwards. Now, I love that intro. It's a rare introduction that Shruti has made, because generally biodatas are read, but rarely is there an emphasis on the Indian wisdom. So I'm very thankful to the entire Meraklis team that has put this amazing summit together. I attended a few sessions yesterday and I found it very different from the normal stuff. I also want to thank my good friend and colleague, Captain Anil Dhankar, whom I'm sure several of you know, and for creating this opportunity. And I know how passionate he is about this entire domain. And what I'm going to bring to you, as Shruti has already mentioned, is what are the Indian perspectives with respect to prosperity and with respect to the social purpose. And I'm going to try and bring into perspective how we look at it today, as in what is the common view. And then I'm going to pose to you some questions for you to think about and introspect whether can we change that paradigm. Because the more I study, not just Arthashastra, any Indian wisdom, I'm sure several of you also have been reading, studying. You know it is vastly different from what we do today, the way we act, including the present crisis which has been caused owing to not following that. Nevertheless, it's going to be a very exciting next 40 minutes, after which we will take questions from you. In fact, I think you can go ahead and already start posing questions. We'll pick it up later. Shruti will do that for me. We'll try and cover as much as we can.
Sure. To the question thing, would like to share with you all that Mr. Kamath speaks 6 languages: English, Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Konkani, and Sanskrit. So in case you are finding it difficult to write and type in English, just post the button on your left hand side. In question button, just write the language and we'll give you a mic and you can share your question with him. So that's, I think, good idea.
Yeah, quick correction. I don't speak Sanskrit and Gujarati, but I follow it.
But you can
Let,
understand, right?
yeah, lest you expect me to respond in those. Okay. So yes, that's right. Thanks, Shruti. And yes, certainly you can ask in the language that you're comfortable with. We'll try and make sense of that. Anything good in India, whether it's a festival or whether it's a celebration, whether it's a ritual, if you see, begins with a story. So what better thing to do now than to share a story? Okay, so I'm just give me a second and I'm going to share my screen with you. Right. So prosperity, ancient Indian perspectives, and relevance to its social purpose. You can see in the background the Indian milieu. Every single thing over here speaks of India. So it is only right that we go to a story also from India. And Shruti mentioned Mahabharata in passing when she was talking about Vidur Niti. And I'm sure this picture is something that will bring back memories to many of you. Some of you, even today, may be either sharing this story with your children, hopefully, or you have seen some younger child reading this story and maybe you got curious and read it yourself. Nevertheless, we are going to revisit this story from a different perspective. And I'm sure there are also several who have not thought much about this story. So let's go to it. So we know that the great war of Mahabharata took place at Kurukshetra, Dharmashetra, Kurukshetra as it was called. And post the war, as generally you will find in the Indian tradition, a huge yajna was performed. It was performed obviously by the victors who were the Pandavas. And after they, during the yajna, as part of the rituals, they also gave away a lot of wealth in different forms. They gave away gold coins, they gave away jewels, they gave away clothes, they gave away cattle, and so on and so forth. And such a giving had taken place in that land after a very long time. So after everything was over, including the giving, the Pandavas were discussing amongst themselves of how great a giving it had been, of how much dan had been done on this occasion. When suddenly their eyes went on to a very funny sight. Never before had anyone seen such a sight. They saw a mongoose. And yes, it was a golden mongoose, but it was golden the way you can see it now. But there's more to it. And the mongoose was rolling down over there near the site of the yajna. Now, everyone got curious and they asked the mongoose, hey, what are you doing? And the mongoose, instead of answering that question, he said, Dan? This was no Dan at all. So everyone over there, including the Pandavas, was surprised. They said, what are you saying? This has probably been the greatest yajna and the Dan along with it in this land. So much has been given away, the likes of which has never been seen in this era. The mongoose said, no, this was no Dan at all. They couldn't stand it anymore. They asked him to explain. That's when he said, let me tell you what I experienced some time back. He said, not too long back and not too far from here, I once visited a home. In that home, 4 people were living. A man and his wife, and his son and his wife. So a set of 4, a family of 4. And that family, being a Brahmin family, were living on alms. As you know, in olden days, the learned Brahmins used to be subsisted or used to subsist on the alms, on the bhiksha given by society. And so it was. But what happened was there was a famine in that land. And that famine continued not 1 year, but 3 years. And it was a real terrible time for all families, including this family. So the man went looking out, the elderly man went looking around for getting at least something because they hadn't eaten for a few days now. Luckily, he returned with a handful of barley in his hand. And as soon as he got that barley in his hand, everybody felt very happy because even this little handful of barley meant so much to the one who's starving. So very quickly, that barley grain was cooked, and whatever was cooked was distributed, separated into 4 equal halves for each of them. Barely had they done that and sat down to eat when there was a tired knock on the door of the home. Now you know in India, Atithi Devo Bhava, and so it was immediately opened up. And there was a man over there who looked like he was going to fall. So the elderly man of the house asked him, "What happened to you? How can we help you?" And he said, "I'm very hungry. I haven't eaten for many days." That was a very weak voice coming out. Without any thought, the older man gave his portion of the barley grain to him, the cooked barley. The poor man ate that up in such a rush, but he still looked hungry. In the background, the poor man's wife, the older man's wife, said that it is only right, me being your ardhangini, your partner, that I give my share of the barley to you as well. And so it is, even though the older man tried to prevent her because he knew how tired she was, how hungry she was, how stout she was. But she didn't let him prevail, and she gave away her portion of the barley to him as well. So the guest ate that up, he gulped it down again, and he was still looking around if he could find a few grains left yet. That's when the younger man, the son of the older man, did not have any hesitation in giving his portion of the barley as well. Once again, that poor man gulped down everything. And finally, it was also the wife of that younger man who gave away her portion of that barley. Now that guest, that poor, hungry, starved guest, was finally satisfied after eating the portions of each of these four. Despite their hunger, they gave away their portions of barley. The guest went away, but those four people in that family, they died of starvation the same night. But mind you, they found it to be a blessing because immediately a chariot came from heaven and took them in the most royal way to heaven. They had earned moksha and they had got svarg because of their noble deed. Now, how was this noble? Let's think about it. This is unthinkable almost in today's times. What are some of the lessons from the story? Giving is not a favor. It's a divine privilege. Think about how the older man, his wife, then his son, and the son's wife gave without thinking twice. They were starved for days. They didn't know if they would be able to eat again for some days. And how did they give that away? Without thinking twice. Because they thought it's a divine privilege and they were proven right. I want to say at this stage, the word dan has been misconstrued. And which is why after this incident, the mongoose immediately said that was the great dan. Because since that incident happened, I have been rolling in every possible place. I'm going back to show you the mongoose. I've been going to every possible place of yajna where dan is happening, and try as I might, my body is still not, the other half of my body is still not turning golden, which turned golden in the place where those 4 people had given up their lives. Okay, now I repeat, here is what the mongoose is saying. The moment those 4 people went to heaven, the mongoose rolled over there for some reason. Maybe he was feeling itchy, and immediately half of his body which rolled over there turned into gold. And he tried the other way, but there just wasn't any grain remaining. Since then, he had been going to every place of yajna where dan was being done to see if he can turn the other half of his body also into the golden color, and it was just not happening. So he said, this is no dan at all. That was the great dan. So the way we understand dan today is the same way as the Pandavas understood dan, which is thinking that we are doing a great favor by giving others, by sharing of our belongings. No, it's a divine privilege. That's how the Indians thought. That's what it was meant to be in ancient days. We earn our right to be part of nature. We all know we are part of nature. Nature is not apart from us, but we earn our right to be part of nature by giving back what we consume. It's our duty to give back, because when we take from it, we are leaving a vacuum there, whatever it is. And we consume so much so that we have created problems for this planet. But I don't want to, make it sound grave. It isn't. There is a lot of hope. Everyone on this planet has equal right to resources. Please note, in every Indian story, you will find that creatures speak. Whether it is a mongoose, whether it is a pigeon, whether it is a tree, whether it is a lake, they all speak because they are as divine as us, and it conveys that everyone on this planet is equal. Actually, Darwin has done a real disfavor on other creatures by making us all humans think that we are superior to other creatures on this planet. It is not so at all, right? But that's another topic, so I'm not going into it. Inclusion is our responsibility. Why did those 4 people in the family not think twice before they shared their food, which they had got after so much difficulty, with that guest? Because they believed inclusion is our responsibility. That man, that guest deserved to get the food as much as they did. Otherwise, they could have just told him, we are starving. It's not a corporate practice, friends. We have made a mockery of D&I today, diversity and inclusion, for those who are hearing the term for the first time. Inclusion is our responsibility. We are lucky to have been included in this nature. Let's begin by giving gratitude. It's no favor. Giving goes hand in hand with taking. This is the most important thing I want to tell you from this story. Giving goes hand in hand with taking. If we are receiving, we have to be grateful, and giving has to be given in the same way as that family did. So here are some of the basics. These 5 are the basics of prosperity. But I'm also saying these are the basics of Artha. Yes, the same Artha in Arthashaastra. So what is this Artha? Before we go to Arthashaastra, I want you to think, what is prosperity? Just dwell for 2 minutes in your mind and try to come up with a phrase or a set of words. You can put it in the chat and I will read it a little later. Think about, what is prosperity? What does it mean to you? What is real prosperity in society? What is prosperity in our family? What is prosperity to an individual? Okay, just jog your brain and see if you can get some definitions, some phrases and words for prosperity. I'm going to now take you to what our Indian wisdom calls as the four goals of human life. For those who are somewhat familiar with our Shastra, or not even familiar but have heard of our Shastras, you may have heard the term Purushaarth. And Purushartha is a combination of Purush, which is not male, but a human, a divine human. And Artha over here is not meaning. Artha over here is objective. Artha has many arthas, many meanings, many dimensions. So in India, right from Manu, and thereafter all the rishis have also written about it, but Manusmriti being the most popular, have stated that there are four goals. Each of these has its own, I would say, concepts. I'm going to tell you in brief. But first, let's see what are these four. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And each of these four have their own science. But what are these four? I'm going to tell you in a line or a couple of words, because you can read a lot about each of these. So dharma, I'm going to bring it down to responsibility, to purpose of life, and to our duties. Okay, I repeat, to purpose, to responsibilities, and our duties. And all of this done in a righteous manner is dharma. The second is artha. Now, artha over here got mentioned previously. Artha is sometimes mentioned as money or wealth, and it is not incorrect. But artha is much more. Artha actually stands for financial well-being. Okay, so and that's a lot more than just having money or wealth. We'll see how. So financial well-being or economic well-being. The third one is Kama. And being a Kamath, I should know about this. Okay, Kama is not just about physical pleasures. Kama is about desires, about motivation, about ambitions, about wishes. There's a lot to it than just what we understand. And finally, moksha, I'll put it in the simplest way. And that simplest way is going back to the source from where we came. Okay, I repeat, going back to the source from where we came. That is moksha. All right. Now, each of this is a science, and therefore there are several literatures written in each of these categories. In Dharma, the most popular literature of India, which I am sure immaterial of your background, your faith, your country probably, you would know, is the Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita, as you have probably figured by now, is not a religious text. It is a text for understanding what Dharma is all about. Similarly, in the second category, there is Arthashaastra and many other Shastras that were written by Purvacharyas. For example, Vidurniti will also fall in the domain of Arthashastra. Then in Kama, I think this everyone will know. Kama Sutra is there. And Moksha, while there's a reference of this in every Dharma Shastra, you cannot probably think of saying, okay, this is specific to the science of moksha. But yes, you can read a lot about it in Garud Puran, for example. Okay, so there's a science in all of this. Let me now go to Arthashastra. We have a lot to cover, but don't worry. I'm covering only the most important things for you. And we can see later, if you wish, how you can continue these studies if you are interested. So Kautilya's Arthashastra, I'm going to tell you in a nutshell. I doubt whether you would have got this in a nutshell ever before in the way I'm going to share it with you. Because it took me almost a decade to understand and arrive at this. I'm sure there are many other masters, but I'm going to try and bring it to you who I'm treating are the common people, to the masses. Prosperity is of the people, not of the leader or his employees. Okay, now let me explain where I am coming from. Arthashaastra. Shastra is broadly translated as a science. I mentioned that earlier, science in each of those four Purushaarthas. Artha, I told you earlier, is economic well-being. But that economic well-being, when taken collectively of the entire society or of large masses, is prosperity. Okay, we'll see more on that. So as per Arthashastra, prosperity is of the people and not of the king, as was in those days. We had kings, right? When Chanakya created Kautilya Arthashastra, he had placed Chandragupta Maurya as the first king of Akhanda Bharat or United India. But prosperity was not of his employees in the Darbar. Prosperity was of entire Bharat, the entire Praja, of the entire Janpad. So that's first. Second, so then what is the role or the importance of the leader? The leader is a trustee of the resources, no more. Resources are the input to prosperity. So we need resources where they are, whether they are natural resources like wind, water, metal ore, so on and so forth, forest produce, and so on. And now, when a certain process is performed on it, we'll go to it a little later, then there is output. If it is done properly by the rules in Arthashastra, we get prosperity. So prosperity is the output. But the leader is not the owner of this. The leader is the custodian of the prosperity. So the leader is a trustee of the resources and a custodian of the prosperity. It's very interesting. The leader's job is not to take. Okay, let's go on. The leader's job is to ensure all have livelihood and can perform their dharma. And dharma, we said, is purpose, duties, responsibilities, resulting in prosperity. So here we understand prosperity happens when the leader makes it possible for everyone to have livelihood, and in that livelihood, or rather get that livelihood through performing the duty that is made for them by virtue of their qualities, their inclinations, their mindset. When all of this is done in the manner prescribed in the Arthashastra, which is not difficult, prosperity will happen. So you can see the leader is only an enabler. He is not a master of the people, just the way the government of any country are not masters. They are the servants. They are the enablers. And inclusion is at the core of prosperity. Can people please go on mute? Inclusion is at the core of prosperity. Okay, otherwise it's not prosperity at all if people are left out. Let's go on. I'm going to share with you something which you will not find in any book at all. Okay, and I'm going to tell you this in a nutshell. This is part of Arthashastra, and please forgive me if you do not understand the details of each of these words. That's intentional, but I will tell you enough for you to understand. The leader or the king, the leader can be feminine today. It can be a woman. It can also be one of the third gender. Is called a Swami or a Swamini. That Swami or Swamini is the center of the circle. Okay, we've enlarged that dot over here, the center over here, for you to see. And what you are seeing on the screen is how organizations need to be structured as per Chanakya. The nation was designed with this thought in mind, and we can design any organization today, whether for profit or not for profit, in the same way, where the Swami or Swamini, the leader, the person in charge, is the center of the circle. Mind you, center of the circle does not mean center of attention, but that center is to provide service to the rest. Who are those? Amatya, which is the blue circle you see around, are nothing but the deputies of the leader. I've intentionally used the original terms to give you an idea of how it was in those days. And the lavender circle that you see around it is the Janpad or the Praja. So you can see that the Swami and Amatya, the leader and his deputies, or the leader and her deputies, have to be in direct contact with the people. Bring it to any organization, here the people are customers and not employees. Any organization has to serve its customers. The leader and the deputies have to be able to serve these people. Beyond that, our infrastructure, which is Durga, which is the yellow circle you can see. Beyond that is the kosha, which is shown by a thin white circle over there. And finally comes the danda, which is the white rotating band in between. Okay, it's I know it looks like it's pointing higher, but it's the white band in between. And finally, the seventh part is the mitra or allies. Danda refers to the workforce. Kosha refers to the finances, the treasury. Durga refers to the infrastructure. Don't worry about the definitions of each of this. Here is what I want to tell you. This is the most important part. The organization structure looks like a circle, but it isn't just a circle, it is a disc. It's a rotating disc. And the Swami is at the center. The leader being at the center means that the leader is always thira, in a single position, unshaken, no matter what the situation, whether prosperity or adversity. Okay, just understand this. And whenever prosperity happens, the Swami or Swamini has to distribute that prosperity outside. Okay, whatever accumulates, distribute it outside. Wealth comes, distribute it outside. Fame comes, distribute it outside. Knowledge comes, distributed outside. How many leaders today are distributing and circulating to the rest of the organization? Now, it doesn't end there. What happens when a disk is rotating? There are two forces. One force goes outwards. One force comes inwards. So when the leader distributes, listen very carefully. This is the most important concept in today's session. When the leader distributes prosperity outside, because of the force coming inwards, that prosperity also comes within to the Swami itself. That means the leader, by circulating prosperity to the rest of the organization, including the customers of the organization, including the other stakeholders of the organization, is able to get prosperity himself or herself. This is just a visual representation. Okay, an organization we show as a corporate pyramid. It isn't a pyramid in Chanakyan terms, in Chanakyan scheme of things. Distribute prosperity and it comes back to you. Let's see what Chanakya says in 3 sutras before I come to one final story and the questions for you. Here is what Chanakya has said. How do we get prosperity? Okay, I mentioned to you, we will discuss this later. Arthasya moolam utthanam, anarthasya tad viprita, says Chanakya in Kautilya Arthashaastra. So what Chanakya is saying over here is the root of prosperity, which means the foundation of prosperity, is in performing meaningful activity. And what is meaningful activity? That having a larger purpose, that which helps everybody prosper, not just the owner, not just the CEO or the leaders of the organization. All stakeholders must prosper. That is meaningful activity. All this is explained in the Arthashaastra. I am giving it to you in a nutshell. And the root of this disaster is in the lack of it. That means if you don't circulate prosperity, then you are going to face disaster. Arthasya moolam utthanam anarthasya. Mind you, the term anartha ho gaya, is disaster. And artha is prosperity. So prosperity comes in meaningful activity, and disaster comes from missing that meaningful activity, not having a larger purpose. Chanakya further says, it will become even clearer now. Artha sampat prakruti sampadam karoti. Now here is the meaning of what I explained to you through that disc earlier. Prosperity should lead to the circulation of prosperity to all stakeholders, which means if I am getting rich as a leader, as an organization, if my stakeholders are getting poorer, let's say my vendors, my suppliers, my agents, my dealers, I am missing something. The society whom I'm serving, that's not prosperity. And if you don't pay attention to this, Chanakya says, Prakruti kopaha. Here, Prakruti is not nature, friends. Prakruti is referring to all stakeholders, including customers, including a workforce, including allies. Okay, all stakeholders. Prakruti kopaha. If you do not distribute, circulate your prosperity, sarva kopebhyo gariyan. The unrest among the stakeholders will be the highest that you will face. They will throw you out. They will remove you from where you are. Okay, there's not a physical removal. But what Chanakya is saying is very clear. Either you bring prosperity to all, or you will be unseated in a hurry. Now, let me just, I can't tell you this story in detail, but I want to tell you, you must read the story of Ranti Dev. Ranti Dev was a dealer, sorry, leader. A dealer is what we have today. A leader in ancient times. And I want to, make this short and tell you that similar to our original, our first story, Ranti Dev in prosperity gave to all his people. But when adversity happened and there was a drought, what does he do? He opens out the granary and treasury and again gives to all his people. He says, take it. I mean, it's distributed properly, meaningfully. And once again, there is drought. And now he doesn't have anything remaining stored in the treasury and granary. So he says, take everything that's there in the palace. That is also given to the public. And he starts living in very, very modest accommodation. And one more year of drought happens, and now he moves under the trees and gives away every single possession he has, including his jewels, clothes, everything. His ministers and family somehow managed to keep him surviving. But to cut a long story short, when it finally happens that 3 or 4 people, much like in the earlier story, one by one come to him asking for food, and that's the only food that is left, he gives even that away. And finally the minister says, please consume this water before that also goes away. And finally one person comes with a dog, like you can see over there, to the king and says that I need water. The king says, please take this water. The man says, I'm a chandal. I'm considered an untouchable. I cannot accept this from you. You are the king. The king says, I see Vishnu in you, the Lord in you. You are not anyone else to me. Please take this water. The moment he does that, Chandal becomes Yam, and all the other 3 who were also gods, who were earlier coming as hungry people, they all collect over there and they bless him. Among them was Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu explains to Rantidev that this was all a test from these devs, because I told them, you were my greatest devotee. You are living what I have given to mankind. The others are not following it. And hence they wanted to test you. You have passed this test with flying colors. Okay, that's the story of Rantidev. It's a beautiful story how the leader, the supreme leader, the king, who's considered only next to God, gave away every single thing. Prosperity returned to the kingdom because it was just a test. Everything was all right, and Rantidev was offered moksha if he wanted it. Now, in today's times, I just want to tell you the names of some leaders. From medieval times, Shivaji Maharaj created such prosperity. Sayaji Rao Maharaj, who created Bank of Baroda and many textile mills, created such prosperity. J.N. Tata, Jamshedji Tata created such prosperity. Azim Premji is still creating such prosperity. Even APJ Abdul Kalam, in whatever capacity is done, everything he could. He lived on the bare minimum means so that people could get money. And JRD Tata, the great man. So I want to leave you, friends, with these 5 questions. So Shruti told me she's going to take questions from the audience. Okay. I decided that I will put my questions first. So I'll make my own task easy now. So all of you, make sure you take a picture of these questions. All right. Please take a picture with your phones and make sure you have stored this slide. If you are the leader, the CEO of your organization, you must think about these. If you are not a leader of your organization, you must still think about these. And after mulling over it, please take it to your leaders as well. Here are the questions. Will organizations focus on, please cancel that must, I'm sorry. Will organizations focus on sustainable development of communities around them? Okay, which means not just us, but everyone around us. How can we reinforce the virtual cycle of giving? Can we embrace prosperity as was explained? Because prosperity, if it is only of organizations, it is not prosperity. Is everyone around me, at least my chosen stakeholders, are they prospering? What did we do in COVID times? Right? Think about it. I'm not saying anything. You did well on it as a business philosophy. Do we believe in the inclusion of all stakeholders? And my final question to you is, can we, the new India, when I say new India, the modern India, create history following these, or following modern principles which are already creating problems around the world? Shall we become history eventually? And I don't think that's too far from now if we continue with what we are doing. So friends, I want to call it to a close. Thank you for this opportunity. I also want to thank my colleague Tejal, who created this beautiful deck and put a lot of thought into it. And of course, I represent 2 organizations. More Than HR Global is the community that I lead, and Chanakya, along with my 3 other co-founders. And Chanakya Consulting Insights is the for-profit organization through which I take Chanakyan learnings to organizations. So thanks very much. I'm going to now come back to you, Shruti.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamath. It was really, really very inspiring. I personally would, follow the 7 principles of organizational structure. I think it's not just for, the top management organizations, but for everybody. I mean, when we think of prosperity, it has to be with everybody.
Right.
In fact, the circulation of prosperity, when we are talking, I mean, definitely very good session. A few nice, you asked question about what is prosperity. So we got responses in the chat. Just, try to read out a few. One person writing samriddhi, enough to be able to take care of one's needs and be able to help others in needs. So other, few more comments coming in. But I have one question, in fact, 2 questions, I would say. So the question is, From Ashish, um, Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha. In which order would you place these?
Wow, I love this question. Thanks, Ashish. So it is in the exact order as which it has been said. Okay, and I'm so
Okay.
glad you asked this because I actually wanted to bring this up, but I was short of time. Dharma comes first, then comes Artha, then comes Kama. And if you are lucky, you will get Moksha. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Now, let's take only two more points. What happens if we go directly to accomplish Artha? That means हमने धर्म का स्टडी ही नहीं किया है. Please understand this, which means that we are acquiring wealth today without studying the Dharma Shastras, without understanding the basics of how wealth should be earned, without understanding our responsibilities, without understanding how we should make prosperity possible. So if we don't know that, then we directly make money. And if we have never studied Dharma Shastra or even Arthashastra, then money is used only for pleasure. And that's when calm happens. So if we are in a world today, Shruti and Ashish, where we are only focusing on karma, not even Artha, because this notion of Artha that we have today is just salary or making money for our luxuries. And I know I'm coming across as very draconian, but I really feel this. Most of us in society, I know you as an audience have logged in because you care, but most of us in society are thinking about ourselves and our family. That's it. Shruti, back to you.
So we have a sub question also. The person is asking, please read out the full question. So the first question was Dharma, Artha, Kama, Shastra, Moksha, in which order? And then the added is a life fulfilled completely attains moksha. Means unless one has achieved fulfillment in other three pillars, could not
Right.
attain moksha.
So let me explain. Okay, now
Right.
see, the session was not on this, but I'm going to explain to you because you have asked this. See, what does moksha mean? Let me explain using a completely different example. Consider a tube light. Okay, of you can consider it LED light or whatever, or an electric appliance. If that electric appliance, let's take a bulb again, has served its purpose, right? Then the moment that bulb is fused, if it has served its purpose, you have no problem because it has served its purpose. Now, mind you, electricity was flowing through it all the time. The moment the bulb is fused, the electricity still was flowing, but it has stopped flowing because here the purpose of this is served. That electricity now flows freely in whatever cycle it was. Okay, now here, why did I give you this? The bulb is like our life. If we have served our purpose, then, and our purpose, the first three purposes, then we have served the purpose of our what we were made. But if we have not done any of it, what is the use of that bulb altogether? So we as a human life also, like an electric appliance, are a storehouse of many resources, of energies, of so on and so forth. Let's use all of it to serve society. Okay, now what happens is that and this is, I'm going to tell you in just half a minute more. It is explained that moksha is something that goes back to its original source. You can go back to your original source only if you have done what you were meant to do as a human. Otherwise, in Indian wisdom, you go to the lower chain, which means you get born once again as another creature, which is a lower creature typically, till you serve your purpose that you are meant to serve. Okay, for more clarity on this, you got my number, you can call me.
Thank you very much. Two more questions. Any books to read on Chanakya learning? This is coming from Shantanu, Noida.
Yes. So I'm sure my colleague Tejal would have already shared it. I generally say that there's only one book which as of today is worth reading on as a starting point. It is called Chanakya on Management by Ashok Garde. Any other book is not for a serious reader. It is for a casual reader जिसको ऊपर ऊपर से थोड़ा understanding चाहिए. Then you can read it. Okay, if you are a serious reader, please study Chanakya on Management. I've left my details with you. We also, Shruti, this is for your information also. For the study of Arthashaastra, we have a group called Living Philosophy Study Group in Mumbai and Pune. Now, of course, since we have all gone online, you can be in any part of the world and join us once a week to study it.
Excellent. This is a very good opportunity. I'm sure
And it's free. It's free.
It's free. So Shantanu, good. There you are. You got the answer. The next question is from Tejista. When you talk about giving, it is necessary to have first. How do you balance that? So it is necessary to have giving the first.
Yes. So name of the person?
Tejista.
Okay, Tejas. Tejas, when we think giving, generally in our mind, from the question I'm gauging, we are thinking I have money or some possessions. Okay, generally. But thing is that you don't even need that. The first way thing you can give is listening to people. You have already given that to me by logging in here for this session. Mind you, all of you have given of both your listening and your time. अभी ये दो चीजें हैं जो हर एक दे सकता है. There's no problem at all. Anybody, we can give this to anyone who needs it, isn't it? Then after that we can think of knowledge. There must be something in which I am good. There are so many needy people who may need maybe just few words of Hindi, English, jo bhi. We can give them an education. So most things can be given without even having too much of possession. फिर तुम पैसे और बाकी के बात चीजों के बारे में बात कर सकते हो. Are you with me? So basic giving, any human being can give. Even if you are poor, you can give, right? Like, and the best, that's why I say go back to those stories. See how those 4 people gave when they had nothing but those 4 grains of rice, even though of barley. Even if they didn't have that, they would have still managed to give something. So giving is not to be thought of possessions. Giving starts with time or even listening. Back at you, Shruti.
Thank you very much. Just the last piece, last question. We're running out of time. I think a brief answer. How do you deal with stress in the current times when we are seeing, a lot of tragedies around us, the pandemic and people affected by that? Right. Any learnings from ancient stories or anything from the masters?
So many learnings are there. I could go on full day for that. So I'm going to give you just one, Shruti. The Chanakya has said the leader, the Swami or Swamini, should have one most important quality, and that is Krutagnya. Krutagnya is the attitude of gratitude. We've heard of it from the West, but really this is not from the West at all. Indians have said this since time immemorial. Just think about the breath that we are breathing right now. Think about the voice, the mouth that we are using to speak right now. Think about the ability of being able to log in and register into this. See how much we are learning. So gratitude doesn't matter if you've lost your job, doesn't matter. I'm just saying this, in a little bit of exaggeration. You have abilities, you are alive. Anybody can help others and anybody can get back on their feet if you only believe in yourself and you have gratitude for what you have. If you look at what you don't have, you will find only darkness. If you have gratitude for what you have, you can create anything. And there are lots of stories, Shruti, which I can tell, but we don't have the time.
Yeah, actually. And well, but then we had amazing session, and people can always get in touch with you for more questions. I can see few people typing questions, but yeah, we'll have to stick to time now. Later, I think all the
Shruti, one
participants.
request.
Yes, yes, please.
If there are any questions that we haven't ended up answering, they can send it on my mail ID. Right? I'll be happy to respond to them. I've left my
Right.
mail ID. I'll say it anyways. Tejal, I'm requesting you to please type in my mail ID so that I don't waste time now. Yes, Shruti, back to you.
Yes, in fact, I was mentioning this. Good that you solved my worry. Yes, so anybody who wants to still ask questions can write directly to Mr. Kamath, and we can always have the answers from him. Um, Thank you very much. You have inspired us to go back to the ancient times and ancient learnings. We'll definitely do that. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Shruti, you've been an amazing host. Thanks so much. Thanks,
Thank
Team
you.
Meraklis, and to all you participants. They may have been maybe 40, 50 of you, but whoever logged in, mind you, you got some great value through this, I hope. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much, sir.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.